An Eastern Cape mother is seeking justice after the death of her 4-year-old girl. Langalam Viki drowned in a preschool pit toilet earlier this week. Police have opened an inquest docket while the Education Department has launched its own investigation. Here's Newzroom Afrika's Siposeto Boy with that report.
Little Langalam Viki's lifeless body was discovered in a pit toilet at Mqwangele Primary School in Valbank on Tuesday morning. This after she failed to come home on Monday. Langalam's mother has described the situation as a nightmare.
Lamntana umbonile umntana bakekho etransporting wenyuka wabheka eziklasini wafika wachaza ba uLangalam akekho etransporting kwathiwa hayi uLangalam uphumile mjonge phaphandle wathatha ubhaka wakhe ebeseklasini waphuma wabheka phandle eyomjonga. So into eyenzekileyo leyo kanti ke umntana uphakwa pha ezitoilet xa kujongwa ke umntana wafumaneka kwapha edreyini netoilet.
She's called on the Education Department to act with urgency.
Bekufuze uba kukhiwa itoilet eziflashayo because kwayena ugovernment unayo indawo yongabi nayo inkathalo xa kufikelela kwindawo yelali because kaloku abantwana abancinci aza toilet ziphezulu gqithi for abantwana abancinci abakwazi ukuqabela phaa kwaza toilet. Bekufuze uba ke ngoku benzelwe iitoilet zakwa grade R.
Department spokesperson Vuseka Mboxela says an investigation will be conducted.
As the matter is already in the hands of the South African Police Service, the department will await their report and also will also do its own internal investigation so that if there is a foul play, such can be determined, and if there is work that needs to be done by the department can do that. Definitely, there is going to be an investigation that takes place, and of course, the legal side of the department will also advise on what steps needs to be taken, because this is not a simple matter as some might think. It is very complicated, and it needs all the sides of the law, and also it needs all the investigation that is needed.
Langalam Viki says she hopes the Department of Education will stick to its word and investigate the child's death in order for her and the family to get closure.
For Newzroom Afrika on Channel 405, I'm Siposeto Boy in Bathelsdorp.
Well, let's continue the discussion around this story now, a very upsetting story indeed. And we are joined for this discussion by Loyiso Mbinda. He is from Naptosa in the Eastern Cape, and that's an education union. We're also joined by Dr. Eileen Carter, and she is from the South African Human Rights Commission, the provincial manager there. Let me start with you, Dr. Carter. When you listen to what the mother of this child says, and that is that it's clear, it would appear, that government does not care about people living in rural areas, and you may not have had a picture of this pit toilet. It looks terrible, and for your child to be pulled from that and of course no longer alive, what kind of recourse would a parent like this expect?
Well, good morning to you and your viewers. I do have a picture of this toilet. We dispatched the team there yesterday morning to go and inspect the facility and engage with the family of the deceased Lana. And we have been shocked again, unfortunately so, that there has been no urgency in the eradication of pit toilets in this country. As the Human Rights Commission, and personally, almost 10 years ago, I was at the home of Rusina Kumape when Michael Kumape died in a pit toilet in a similar incident. And here we are almost a decade later, and we still grappling with the issues of pit toilets within rural communities. We are calling upon government to act with urgency. As the infrastructure norms and standards indicate, we should not be sitting with pit toilets anymore. But unfortunately, for instance, in the Eastern Cape, it looks like we have more than 2,000 pit toilets still within the province. And these issues need to be addressed, and they need to be addressed urgently. So as the Human Rights Commission, we have instructed attorneys, we have engaged with the department ad infinitum about these issues, and we have instructed attorneys to take legal action in this regard.
Yeah. Mr. Mbinda, let's bring you into the conversation. You lead an education union. You have heard Dr. Carter. She says their calculations, at least 2,000 pit toilets still exist in the Eastern Cape, and yet the government of the day says we are a caring government. Does that indeed ring true in your ears?
Thank you, sir. Thank you to your listeners, your viewers. It is highly disappointing in really what happened, unless we pass our condolence to the family of the child. I fully agree with the latter speaker from the human rights, that indeed we don't have a caring government. It is just a lip service that people are claiming to be a caring government. The reason why I'm saying so is that not very long, last year, 450 million was taken back and redirected for infrastructure, redirected to KZN because of the lack of capability from our province to utilize that money which was meant for infrastructure, of which pit toilets, eradication of pit toilets is one of the activities that are supposed to be done in terms of addressing the infrastructure challenges as informed by norms and standards that were published in 2013 by the same government. And it is in that gazette where the issue of eradication of pit toilets, it was put clearly that it is not accepted. And the deadline to ensure that the norms and standards are met as they are tabulated in the gazette, it was the 31st of December 2017. But in 2022, we still have pit toilets. Moreover, the very same Department of Education of the Eastern Cape is the one that could not utilize almost plus 300 million of its budget for infrastructure 2022-2023 financial year. And as such, that money has been redirected to provinces that have a capacity to use money effectively, which is the Western Cape as well as the Gauteng. You could imagine that a money that was meant to correct things of the past in terms of infrastructure in the Eastern Cape is redirected to provinces like Gauteng and Western Cape, only because that we don't have officials that can be able to do what they're supposed to do. And the mere fact that this is continuing is because there's always no consequence management whenever such thing is happening in this province. It is really unfortunate that we are still experiencing such things in our department.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mr. Mbinda, I mean, what you have just given us is such... It's a painful background. Dr. Carter, you have monies being returned from this very department that is supposed to eradicate pit toilets. And that money is redirected and possibly even given to other provinces, if indeed Mr. Mbinda is correct. Again, I ask this question.
No,
does the South African government really care?
Correct. Well, I can't answer that. And I do think we have to also distinguish between what we've seen in this instance specifically and pit toilets in general. There's a scourge of pit toilets, and we need to address this holistically and very urgently. But in the school in question, we did note that the pit toilets where the child died is a ventilated pit toilet, which means this is a new structure which is acknowledged as a structure that we can use in school environments like this. However, this is the secondary issue that comes in here is the design of this structure is not conducive to the small bodies that are attending these schools. The learner slipped through the VIP toilet into 3 meters deep of excrement. And the design, therefore, that we are applying, where the department are in fact rolling out infrastructure improvements, need to be to spec, and it needs to address the best interests of children of all sizes. So that is why we are making a call to principals and district officials to go and report whether the VIPs which have been brought onto the premises are in fact catering to the needs of these small bodies and are in fact not posing a danger to these little ones. Well, so we are calling upon the department to make a roll call in that respect as well and report on that.
Well, what you are explaining now, Dr. Carter, is starting to, I suppose, illuminate a little bit about what this situation really looks like. So it would seem to me that there are toilets designed for adults, there are toilets designed for much younger children. As you say, they're little bodies, and so this child may have gone to an adult toilet and therefore slipping and falling through. What about the responsibility of the educators then, that when children do go to this toilet, there's someone who is supervising that?
Well, that is what we would call upon the government now to very strictly monitor, to make sure that where there are these VIPs and where there is a objectively determinable measure that we can apply to say that these toilets are very large, that they are in fact monitored and that supervision is then enacted when these little ones go to the bathroom. So that for us is very important. So there's a two-pronged approach. Immediate eradication of pit toilets, but secondly, where there's VIPs on premises, that we make sure that there's oversight and supervision when the little ones make use of them.
Dr. Eileen Carter, let me thank you very much for your time. She's with the South African Human Rights Commission, a provincial manager in the Eastern Cape. Also, Mr. Loyiso Mbinda from the Education Union, Naptosa. Thank you very much for your background information that you've given us. Really worthy conversation. We're hoping that we can get the department to speak to us after this tragic incident. Absolutely unacceptable.